fact, many of the best films from the last decade also featured some of the best movie villains we've ever seen. From insidious music teachers to scheming lovers, here are some of the biggest, meanest, and most devious bad guys from the last decade. Beware, there are major spoilers ahead. Black Panther remains one of the best and most important films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the film's villain is easily one of its most compelling elements. We're given quite the explosive introduction to Eric Killmonger Stevens, played brilliantly by Michael B. Jordan. At the start of the film, we watch him pull off one seriously epic museum heist. A military veteran who bears scars on his body for each one of his kills, Killmonger is undeniably one of the MCU's most fascinating characters, and his motivations make a whole lot of sense. He's out for revenge after his father's murder at the hands of his own brother. Killmonger wants to use Wakanda's considerable resources to liberate Black people all over the world from oppression. But he commits so many despicable and callous acts through the film, it can be hard to see him as a sympathetic character. There's no two ways about it. Jordan's masterful performance easily cements Killmonger as one of the most interesting villains of the last decade.
You know where I'm from. When Black folks started revolutions, they never had the firepower.
Not far into Jordan Peele's directorial debut, Get Out, we meet Chris Washington and Rose Armitage, a seemingly well-adjusted couple played to perfection by Daniel Kaluuya and Allison Williams. At the start of the film, they're bracing themselves for a weekend to visit Rose's parents' house, a sprawling estate with no shortage of creepy goings-on. Chris is initially quite nervous about meeting Rose's family, but Rose doesn't appear worried in the slightest.
Do they know I'm Black?
No. Should they?
Following an unnerving near miss with a wayward deer, their visit seems to go just fine at first. Although perhaps the conversations are a little bit stilted and awkward at times. Of course, things eventually take a turn for the decidedly sinister. Soon enough, Chris is getting seriously freaked out by all the bizarro things happening at the Armitage house, and he eventually tells Rose that he wants to leave. Rose seems to acquiesce, but just as it looks like he's about to actually escape the estate, the story throws another curveball our way. Rose refuses to give up the keys. She's decidedly not on Chris's side, and in a flash, she's gone from the girl next door to one of the decade's most insidious villains. Sometimes great movie villains are seemingly normal people who nevertheless want to ruin lives. A perfect example is the character of Terence Fletcher in Whiplash, masterfully portrayed by J.K. Simmons.
Look at me! 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now, was I rushing?
He's a conductor and teacher at the fictional prestigious Schaefer Conservatory. A devoted perfectionist and flat-out abusive instructor, Fletcher singles out a student named Andrew, played by Miles Teller. He's a young drummer in his first year at the academy, and Fletcher goes to great ends to make his life a living hell. As the two battle it out over Andrew's spot in the band, some troubling information comes to light about Fletcher. After Andrew testifies against Fletcher in court, the twisted teacher intentionally sabotages his young student during a pivotal performance. Simmons won a well-deserved Academy Award for the role and gives one of the defining performances of his long and storied career. Fletcher isn't a supervillain, but he's definitely a monster. In fact, he's one of the scariest film characters in recent memory. There's simply no way to sympathize with this guy. No, he might not possess the raw, brutish power of a villain like Thanos, but Loki certainly corners the market on style and panache. This god of mischief has made memorable appearances in more than a few MCU films, including the Thor movies and the Avengers installments. Beyond that, the character will be getting his very own namesake show on Disney+, and it's expected to premiere on the streaming service sometime in spring 2021. Never mind the fact that Loki is supposed to be evil. He's become one of the most beloved characters in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. The fact that audiences are basically rooting for him has everything to do with Tom Hiddleston's rakish, undeniably charming performance. In fact, it seems like fans are willing to overlook some of the character's worst trespasses simply because they love Hiddleston's performance so much.
I guess I'll just have to go it alone, like I've always done.
In fact, that's a large part of what makes Loki such a great villain. Even when he's conspiring against Thor and the other good guys, he still somehow manages to win us over. Well played, Loki. Well played. In Quentin Tarantino's 2012 Western Django Unchained, Leonardo DiCaprio plays the film's central villain, Calvin Candie. He's a brutal plantation owner with a serious taste for violence, and he gets his kicks by forcing slaves to fight to the death right in front of him. To make matters worse, Candie owns Broomhilda, played by Kerry Washington. She's the wife of the titular bounty hunter Django, played by Jamie Foxx. Candie is quite unwilling to let Broomhilda go. In the hopes of rescuing her, Django hatches a plan. Along with his traveling companion, Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz, he manages to infiltrate Candie's plantation.
I do believe you were just getting ready to make me a proposition to buy Broomhilda. Am I right?
Their plan, of course, goes horribly awry. DiCaprio's performance as Candie is totally unforgettable from start to finish, and what a finish it is. Mad Max Fury Road captivated critics and fans alike, earning 10 Academy Award nominations and ultimately raking in 6 wins. Widely considered one of the best action films ever made, Fury Road masterfully combines heart-stopping action with an enthralling narrative. The post-apocalyptic tale also features a perfectly horrendous villain in the form of Immortan Joe, played by Australian actor Hugh Keays-Byrne.
We send off my war rig to bring back gasoline from Cashtown.
This creepy, barely alive cult leader heads an army that's fond of capturing healthy people to subsequently use for blood and breeding. At once entirely frail and incredibly intimidating, Immortan Joe is a tyrannical dictator and, it must be said, a really impressive driver. Not a good person, though. Crafting a villain as iconic as Darth Vader is certainly a tall order, and while his shadow still looms over the entire franchise, J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson managed to create an entirely new kind of villain for the series. Audiences were first introduced to Kylo Ren in the 2015 film Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and he's portrayed marvelously by Adam Driver. An operative of the sinister First Order, he didn't start out as a bad guy. In fact, he once trained as a Jedi under Luke Skywalker himself, but he was ultimately tempted by the dark side. It happens. Aided by Driver's explosive, thoughtful performance, Kylo Ren is a multi-layered and complex villain. He's also a rather petulant one, too. He might be the powerful leader of the First Order, but he still succumbs to the occasional temper tantrum, which makes the character feel all too human at times.
I'll destroy her, and you, and all of it.
It's always a smart move to bring a celebrated actor to play a vicious and unapologetically campy antagonist. And director Taika Waititi did just that by casting Academy Award winner Cate Blanchett as the villain in Thor Ragnarok. Thor faces a number of obstacles throughout the film, but his biggest one is surely Hela, the goddess of death. Blanchett is clearly having a blast playing the character, vamping up a storm even as she doles out death blows by the bucketful.
Kneel.
Beg your pardon.
Kneel.
It's certainly a relief when Hela is defeated, but it's also disappointing that Blanchett likely won't be back for future Thor installments. Sometimes a villain is hiding right there in plain sight, taunting us all the while. And when this formidable foe finally reveals their true identity, audiences are treated to one seriously epic twist. The 2017 blockbuster Wonder Woman is a perfect example of this. As it turns out, Ares, the god of war, is very much responsible for much of the film's mayhem, and seeing as he's Diana's half-brother, he's been right under her nose the entire time.
Only a god can kill another god.
Played by the always mesmerizing David Thewlis, Sir Patrick Morgan is initially introduced to us as an advocate for peace. But no, he's actually Ares in disguise, and peaceful he is not. In the film's climax, he sheds his human persona to go up against Diana once and for all. Ultimately, Ares' two radically different personas, not to mention Thewlis' convincing, wildly entertaining performance, makes him one of the last decade's most memorable movie villains. It should go without saying that you simply can't have a list of great villains without including Thanos. As you're no doubt well aware, he's the resident big bad throughout multiple phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for very good reason. Josh Brolin officially took on the role in 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, and right from the start, he makes the character his own. Thanos eventually decides that he should help out the universe by cutting its population in half by any means necessary, a belief instilled in him after the people of his home planet Titan go extinct thanks to overpopulation.
Little one, it's a simple calculus. This universe is finite, its resources finite.
Throughout several MCU films, Thanos spends his time assembling the 6 Infinity Stones to place them in the legendary Infinity Gauntlet. In Avengers Infinity War, he finally achieves his goal and snaps half of the world's living beings out of existence. Nevertheless, he ultimately meets his crushing defeat in Avengers Endgame. Without a doubt, Thanos ranks among the last decade's greatest villains. He's cold-blooded, single-minded, and willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goal, namely, kill half the population of the universe. Gone Girl starts out with a rather familiar narrative. Adapted by author Gillian Flynn from her insanely readable novel, the film tells the story of a young woman named Amy Dunne, played by Rosamund Pike. She's apparently gone missing on the morning of her 5th wedding anniversary. Unsurprisingly, her detached husband Nick, played by Ben Affleck, quickly becomes the main suspect in the apparent crime. Directed by David Fincher, Gone Girl incorporates clever, dreamlike flashbacks to let us see how Nick and Amy's fairy tale romance has steadily turned sour. Halfway through the film, we make a startling discovery. Nick is actually being framed by Amy. After she discovers that he has been cheating on her, she goes full-fledged diabolical and totally fakes her kidnapping. She even plans to take her own life just so she can pin her death on Nick. Talk about holding a grudge. But then she eventually changes her mind and decides she's going to try holding on to her husband, once and for all this time. Throughout the film, it becomes all too clear that Amy will stop at nothing to achieve her infernal ends. She's even willing to murder her loyal childhood love, Desi, played by Neil Patrick Harris. And ultimately, she wins this insidious game. She completely traps Nick, and the two start preparing to have a child together. As far as Nick is concerned, that's almost certainly a fate worse than death. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.